War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we sit down, we get together, and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. We're always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We'll take you out where we can get you. Just appreciate you spending just even a few minutes or even seconds of your time just to hang out with us and talk about all things Auburn. On tonight's live stream, we're going to be talking about week 2 of Auburn basketball, specifically Auburn men's basketball. But if you guys like, we can also talk about the women's basketball team as well, who got a pretty big win this weekend. I'm kicking myself for not attending because it was near me. Very upset about that. But it's been a great week for basketball in relation to Auburn across the board in week 2. So all of that's on the table. We want to hear from you. We want to discuss the things that have happened this week in the game against South Florida for Auburn men's basketball. We can even talk about Georgia Tech for women's and the big tournament that Auburn will begin in starting tomorrow from the date of this live stream. That's going to be some big implications for Auburn's season, but for college basketball season as well, to see kind of where they stack up with the rest of the field that might be in the tournament potentially. As you come into the stream tonight, please do a couple things for us. If you enjoy this type of content, we ask that you smash that like button. It does help us find other people out there, invite them into the stream, and helps them be a part of our little family within the Auburn family. Had to adjust that light a little bit. It's a little bit bright. Also, post where you're watching from, city, state, international. You know the drill. If you have been here before, post all that right now. I want to know who's here, where you're from. It's like our roll call segment for the Auburn family. All that's good things right there. And a little bit later in our show, we're going to be hearing from our sponsor, and you'll see in the little ticker that I've now put down below, it's a little bit something extra special, this live stream for this week. We'll talk a little bit more specifically about that in just a little bit. All that being said, let's talk about some Auburn basketball. Let me go ahead and see who's already here in the chat. Russell, good to see you early for a change. War Eagle from Birmingham, fellow Auburnites, and I appreciate you reminding people to smash that like button. Kevin, good to see you. Thank you for being here as well. Calling in from Navarre, if that's how you pronounce it. Navarre is it? I always want to say Navarre, but it's Navarre. He says he thinks we'll beat Uconn. Auburn's got a really tough matchup against that. We can talk about that in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the week that has happened before we get to that. And I know that's hard to do, right? It's the same type of thing. You know, nobody really wants to talk about the South Carolina game for obvious reasons this week, especially because the Iron Bowl is this week. So I understand that the energy, the focus is directed towards that tonight, and completely understanding that. We'll get there in just a little bit. So post comments, questions, share it out on social media. That's the big things that you can do for us right now as we kind of get going. Only one game on the docket for Auburn and men's basketball this week, this past week, and that was against South Florida. It's been interesting to kind of break this one down because Coach Pearl has been very good when he schedules teams about trying to get the upper echelon of some of the lower conferences, if you want to call them that. He did that with Morehead State and some others in the past, a couple times this season already. And you would assume that South Florida would have been a decent matchup for the Tigers, seeing as how Coach Pearl was wanting to do that. But as we found out in his opinion, he said this blatantly after the game. Auburn did win 58-52. It was a little bit of a scare that this was not a good team. And I found that very interesting in his post-game comments. I was like, Coach, it's a little bit forward. So I hope he had that conversation with the South Florida head coach and said, hey, yeah, we're not a good team. Because that's a little bit forward in my book personally, to be saying those type of things. But Coach Pearl, you know, he sometimes puts the cart before the horse in the things that he says every once in a while, but you still got to love him no matter what, because look at what he's done with this program. But obviously, they're not the upper echelon of the conference they're in. The more important thing for the Tigers this week was going to this venue to try and get a good look at where you're going to be playing in postseason play, right? Isn't it nice, by the way? Everybody remember last year? Everybody remember how miserable it was on the eve of the season beginning? We get the news that Auburn will not be eligible for postseason competition. And here we are now. And I think we're all sitting on pins and needles still waiting for that other shoe to drop, because it just feels like it's been that way for us. We can't, you can't have anything nice. But so far, Auburn is free and clear, ready to roll for the postseason. So we have gotten an early look at what will be the post-season site for the SEC championship in Tampa Bay, which a lot of people are going to look over and say, yeah, that's all good enough. But I can tell you, as a basketball player, line of sight, familiarity with your surroundings. Now, granted, it's going to be a little bit more packed than it was with the Auburn versus South Florida game, but they at least got a good look at what to expect, and the sound thing will come. Clint Richardson of the Auburn Uniform Database. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here, as always. Let's see here. Russell, I thought Pearl's comment was very interesting also. I wonder if he feels more comfortable saying something like that because of his confidence in his team, his most talented, quite possibly. That's going to be debated a lot. What really is his most talented team? I think if a few names had shown up in some previous seasons, meaning they had gone elsewhere, Jalen Green for one, Jonathan Kuminga was another one, Greg Brown. There were some names. Now, obviously, all those names are going to come together at once, but Auburn could have really, really had that team be completely stacked. This one, it might be. I'm going to wait and see what happens, but I don't know. I think sometimes Coach Pearl, being the promoter and the energy guy he is, he just kind of gets ahead of himself in what he's saying and didn't realize what he said. And sometimes it's best just to power through with a comment and explain yourself as opposed to backtrack and say stuff like that. And of course, Clint's got comments on the USF jerseys. I'll be honest with you, Clint. I just got my first look at them because I didn't watch the game. I listened to Sonny and Andy Burcham, and that's always a joy, by the way. You have to at least listen to one game on the radio in basketball. So just for Coach Sonny Smith. And now they're even doing segments on the radio, like commercials, Sonny says, and they get some of his craziest quotes out there. It's good stuff. He was one of my favorite interviews that I did for Auburn Roots. If you haven't checked that out, you can find it on Apple Podcast. He's a great guy, great coach, but an even funnier human being. But yes, I looked at those uniforms and I'm like, who decided that was a good idea? Because they need to be fired immediately. Even Dusty, one of our channel members and Booster Club members, agrees with this. And in fact, I'm going to fault that with the reason why they lost the game, right? Uniforms play that much of a role. Yes, Kevin, Bruce is a great coach for the Auburn Tigers team. He is on his way to being one of the best ever, and in some company for the best. We can have that discussion probably later on down the line, but maybe so. Russell, very true. He gets excited and surprisingly, but also pleasantly honest. Unlike most coaches, he really need to enjoy him as much as possible while in the moment. Absolutely, I love this comment. There is a certain of gamesmanship and coach speak that coaches have to do, but it's refreshing and it's nice when they're actually honest for a change, right? And actually say what they're thinking and say what they're feeling. Sometimes you wish there'd be a little bit of a filter there, but we're making a lot of, and I know we're not making a lot, but we're talking a lot about those comments. I remember sitting in this room working on, I've been rearranging some stuff in this room, as you can tell, probably, that I heard him say that. I was like, ooh, coach, may not want to say that too forward right there. So it's just interesting to hear. Clint further critiquing the USF jerseys. They've gone all in on the slime green lately. Slime and dark green. It's bad on basketball and football and beyond. Well, when you're a program like that doesn't have much going on right now, sports wise, in terms of success, you got to drum up some interest in yourselves. And that typically uniforms is where it goes. Kevin, great question. When will Alvin Flanagan be back? So it's been a couple weeks, and I would refer you to my video that I did about so many weeks, maybe even a month or two ago, talking about when the news broke that he wasn't going to be back. I did the math based off what the projected recovery time for what he had done was, and I think I had him coming back. He would potentially be available for like the last non-conference game. but you don't want to rush these things. So I anticipated in that video, I think, saying that he wouldn't be there till the start of conference play. So I just wouldn't anticipate him until then, maybe in a little bit after that, because this guy's got a career ahead of him, and you don't want to hurt that. Also, not make him put him out there before he's ready for the team, because there's going to be some adjustment period for that. It's a good question, though. USF. So again, the score 58-52. Things got a little scary there, didn't it? You wouldn't be an Auburn fan if your heart rate didn't raise a little bit during a sporting event, no matter what it is. Things get a little bit interesting from time to time for us, not just a little bit of the time, basically all the time. This is why we can't have nice things, which is one of my favorite sayings of all time. Trying to get my stats board here it froze up on me here we go. I can go through some of the stats. I won't go through all of them. What I like to do usually is just look at some of these and point things that stuck out to me. But I'd love to hear your perspectives on that game, things that stuck out to you, things that are really you're loving to see there. Should join you one night to critique the opponent uniforms. Listen, here's Clint. This is what I want from you real quick before we get into some of these stats discussions. I want you, and this is my idea off the top of my head, like every month, don't matter the sport, but try to tie it back to Auburn, obviously. You know, if it's an Auburn opponent, that's what you need. Every Auburn opponent in every sport, find the uniforms that you hate the most or that you love the most, and then we'll do a show about it, because I'd love that, just to pick at them. And this one is at the bottom of the barrel with the USF jerseys there. All right, stats discussion here. Obviously, the man of the night was KD Johnson. How much do you love KD Johnson? I'm going to credit our boys on the Inside the Jungle podcast. Again, reminder, that is Gray and Chris Oldenburg, the father-son dynamic that have now taken the lead on that podcast. I said I'd never give it up, but I did. And they are doing a great job. You need to be listening to that podcast. Yeah, they just dropped that today, breaking down this game, but also looking ahead to that. I'm crediting them with just saying that the Sean Shivers analogy is to KD Johnson. He is the bowling ball, the Sean Shivers of the basketball team, the energy guy, the guy that doesn't quit. He's the Energizer Bunny, and he gets his just desserts here with 15 points leading the team, followed by Zep Jasper, who is the only other Tiger in double figures tonight. Shockingly, after game one, Wendell Green was the leading scorer and just looked every bit of the combination of Sharif Cooper and Jared Harper, 0 points on the night. 0 from the field. Didn't even get to try a free throw. Did get 4 rebounds, though, and I've been impressed about his ability and desire to rebound the ball. He turned it over about 3 times, which is the most out of all the team. But, everyone's going to have an off night. It's just a stark comparison to see the great game he had in game 1 all the way to now, where he had kind of just a moderate game in game 2, but now game 3, no points whatsoever. Russell says can't wait for the Flanny return. Have to find the happy medium on getting him back soon enough to tell the team and meet Max Pitcher, but can't even come close to rushing it to ensure that we have him at the end. Yeah, I think that's going to be the fine medium, and it's not just for his health, and it's just for the team's health, right? They're going to have this entire non-conference to get this thing figured out together, and then when you insert someone else into the lineup that has a different skill set, that has a different dynamic they bring, it can change things. And Alvin Flanagan is a talent that you don't want to waste, so to speak. So those are some of the big things that stick out. Everybody else was in single-digit points, those that did score. What I love to see, and I know this isn't really important, doesn't get Auburn basketball fans jazzed up about this, but the fact that we're seeing Lore Behrman out there in significant time. Some of that could be out of necessity because you don't have that other guard in Alvin Flanagan right now, but that shows you something, right? That coach is trusting him to be out there and participate. 10 minutes of playing time that he's getting. He got more playing time than Chris Moore, Dylan Cardwell. That is shocking. It is absolutely shocking to me. Preston Cook even got in there, but for basically 0 minutes, 9 time. Jabari Smith, okay game, 9. He still is the best player out in the court, even if his stats don't show it. And then Walker Kessler with 5. I think you need to get used to Walker Kessler putting these stats up like this, where he's basically in single digits and flirting with a double-double with his rebounds. But what he brings to the table is not the points. It is his presence there and his ability to alter people's shots in the middle of the lane. It's as simple as that. It's just his presence as much as his talents that's making the difference for the Auburn team. When you are as stout and versatile as we are defensively, you can win games like this when you can't hit shots. Absolutely, right? So if you're going to be a team that's streaky on offense, you need to have the defense to back it up. Does anybody find that analogy ironic for football? Sorry, I just stirred up some feelings right there. Yes, and that's I am a fundamentals focused guy. Free throws and defense are the things that, and rebounds are the things that I focus on the most. Auburn has shown they have the ability early on to rebound well with Walker Kessler, Jabari Smith, and basically everybody. And they have shown the ability to have decent free throws. Still not up to my standards, but defensively, that talent is being utilized in some very sound fundamental ways. And it's making this team able to cope with, playing people on their best night. Coach said it best. USF is not a team that should beat Auburn ever in any sense of the word. But yet they had their best game of the season. I know it's a young season, and Auburn still was able to withstand it. I mean, look at this. The scoring difference, first half, 26 points to the second half, 19. Excuse me, I had that backwards. 26 points for Auburn, 33 for USF. Only 19. They held them to 19 points, that being USF, in the second half. That's an incredible turnaround there. They just locked it down. Once they stopped hitting their shots, it became a non-factor at that point, and their talent just is not there. Very refreshing after defensive lapses last season, much better this year. And, here's the thing. You got to remember things in context of last year. A lot of things happened. You can't ignore the emotional and mental aspect of learning that you're not eligible for the postseason, although they at times didn't play like they even knew that. But that factors into it. It affects them. Also, having injuries the entire season, whether it was Sharif Cooper being out, it was, what was his name? Justin Powell was the star, then he wasn't. It was just a constant flow back and forth on the guard possession, especially, and that really, really affects people. Kessler also very long and quick in passing lanes, a lot of tipped passes. Yes. Length and ability, especially at his position, are two really good weapons that are hard to mess up with, to not take advantage of if you're that type of player. All right, let's hear from our sponsor real quick. I want to make sure that we do that. As you've seen in the ticker below here tonight, we've been talking about it all this month with manscaped.com. It was 20% off plus free shipping. Now you've got a 25% off code to take advantage of over there just for this week. The 22nd is when it started to the 29th. Go over to manscaped.com using the code E2C, and you can take advantage of some of the great deals they have over there on some men's care and men's grooming items for this holiday season. One of the great items that I've tried this year is their travel bag that they have. It's made up of genuine leather. It's a great quality thing, and it's the perfect size. Honestly, I've had the hardest time trying to find what some people call a ditty bag. It's the weirdest word ever, but a travel bag for your toothbrush, your razor, all that stuff. Either they're too big or they're too much. This one is just the right thing for you. And that's one of the items that you can find over there at manscaped.com using our code E2C for that 25% off this holiday season for this week only. This is exclusive. They just did this. So make sure you go take advantage of that over at manscaped.com using the code E2C for 25% off. Make sure you're thankful this holiday season with the gift of manscaped.com. All right, let's talk some more basketball stuff and see what you guys are thinking. Share with me any other thoughts or impressions you had from the game, things that stuck out to you. And then we're going to shift over into discussing the Battle for Atlantis tournament, because I know that's fresh on everybody's mind. It's hard to focus on this game when that is sitting there waiting to be talked about. COVID year, youngest roster in Division I, played a major role. Yeah, so, I mean, think about that. Injuries, illnesses, eligibility issues all the way around, COVID, all of that factored into last year. So it's kind of one of those things when you have that discussion about what's the most talented team that he ever had. It's hard to even throw them into the equation because you can't really get a good read of that for last year. Although I will say this year it looks pretty good as well. Because remember that guy named JT Thor, along with Sharif Cooper? They're both doing big things already in the league. All right, let's look at a couple other stats here. I like to look at team stats too. 34% from the field for Auburn after a dismal second half, or first half, which I think was 18, 19, something like that. So complete turnaround here. Whereas they lived by the three, they almost died by the three in this game with only 19%. Their free throw percentage, 69%. So we'll give them 70 but that is not what you should be making. You should be making at least 80. Sorry, I'm a stickler from that. Even though they lost in the turnover battle, it didn't obviously matter all that much, but they gave up way too many. So turnovers and poor shooting were almost the thing that did in this Auburn team. The thing that saved them, defense, when you include with that, especially rebounds. 44-33 is the defensive winning margin for Auburn in that favor. So you put this one to bed. It's not a team that you're saying on your resume, hey, look at this win that we got here, right? This is not something that you want to be like pointing at, but you got the win on the road. You got to see the place that you're going to be playing in the SEC tournament, and that's about all that you really want to take from this one. Put it to bed, move on, because you've got bigger and better things coming up right here. Dusty starts us off moving on to that bigger and better thing with, what day is the game after Uconn? Well, that depends. Supposedly, I think the tournament is only for the 3 days. So for tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Thanksgiving, and then Friday after. I'm going to pull up the bracket here for you guys right now so that we can look at it together. And wow, that is some really small print way down there. Hang on one second here. 230, I think, is what it's listed out on there. If I can see that really small print, let me see if I can zoom that in for just a second here, because that is incredibly small, and that did not help one little ounce. Okay, 2:30 tomorrow, Auburn versus Uconn. Probably, they're all pretty decent matchups, and I'll talk about all the teams here in just a second. But this is a really intriguing one. It might be who comes out of this one as the winner of that side of the bracket. So if you are the winner, it says that game will be on Thursday, the 25th at noon. If you are the loser, you will have the game at 2:30. So looks like a midday matchup for you, Dusty, on when you can expect to see the next game for Auburn, either a noon Eastern time or a 2:30 Eastern time. If you win at noon, if you lose at 2:30, because that's the great thing about these type of tournaments. It's a tournament plus a showcase, because in a true tournament, once you're out, you're out. But they go into the losers bracket, and you get a chance to keep playing and see yourself against other teams, which is going to be really crucial for Auburn. And it's part of their non-conference schedules. These things are worked into these tournaments. Guaranteed amount of games that you can have towards your schedule. Kevin's already excited. He said, forget about this. I'm excited about Trey Donaldson. You should be. Let's be excited about these guys, though, first. Do you think the replacements of Sharif and Thor are better this year? Crazy, but the added point guard depth may equal his total production, mainly because of better defense. Jabari is Jabari. Special. Yes. It's hard to really, and I think in fairness, it's not, you can't really make comparisons with Sharif and that team because of what they went through, because they weren't all together all at the same time. Think about that. I remember us having discussions on Inside the Jungle podcast about, imagine when Sharif and Justin Powell get together. They never saw each other in terms of on the court together, if I remember correctly. Maybe one game, if that. I don't think, or maybe it wasn't at all. In fact, I know it wasn't, because there was an interim period where Allen had to be point guard. Sharif faded and finally eligibility-wise, and then he got hurt, and Allen basically had to go back into helping at point guard, and then things just fell apart. Do they equal that? I don't know. That's going to be dependent upon Wendell Green. He's been, kind of up and down so far in the first 3 games at the point guard position. Not in terms of me liking him, but just points-wise, stats-wise. So we'll see there. Zepp is seeming to be a good addition there. And, I'd like to see when Alan Flanagan gets here and I see all of that dynamic, we'll probably have a good idea of the guards up and down the board, and you can make an assessment then. But it's still going to be hard to talk about, that in terms of who is better because of how much attrition, how much problems they had with the roster last year. All right, so your teams in the battle for Atlantis: Michigan State, Loyola Chicago. Tell me if you've heard of these before. Uconn, obviously Auburn, Syracuse, Virginia Commonwealth, or VCU as we know them typically, Baylor, and Arizona State. Just the national champion last year with Baylor, just Tom Izzo, just Loyola Chicago, which was one of the darlings last year, just the perennial power. Well, not perennial, but usual historical power of UConn, just Jim Boeheim and Syracuse, just VCU, who's shocked the world several times. And then there's Arizona State. Now, Arizona State every once in a while is up there. So this, to me, up and down is just a great field. I felt like when we were in the Maui Invitational, you had Duke and was Kansas there as well, I think. But you had like two great teams, Auburn and a couple others there, but this is just kind of solid up and down. Obviously, Baylor is the headliner in Group 4. I think you could make a case based off of the rankings alone here, because I'm doing a quick scan of them right now, and the only ones out of that group that I see ranked are Auburn at 22 in the coaches poll, which they didn't move up this week. They stayed the same. Baylor at 5, but in the AP poll, Baylor's at 6, and Auburn has moved up to 2 spots in the 19th spot. So Auburn and Baylor are the rankings-wise headliners of this in groups 2 and 4. Michigan State would be the favorite out of Group 1, and Syracuse would be the favorite out of Group 3. So that's kind of how you can kind of look at everything on that and just kind of see impressions. What do you think might happen there? Duke shot 38 free throws. We shot 7. Zion didn't do anything. That's fair. Free throws win games, though. That's why I'm a stickler for them. Win or lose games, they can. What am I, Yoda? All right. So again, we dressed the next game. Whoever wins for Auburn versus UConn, you play the next day about midday, noon if you win, 2:30 if you lose. The game after that would be the 26th. If you win again and you make it to the championship game, that game's at 11 a.m. on Black Friday. And then the losers game would be at 4:30. It looks like, again, such small print on that thing is where that'll happen there. You've also got other places for people that lost the other games to fall into. So hopefully Auburn's going to get out of this thing with at least one win. Now, when you look at matchups wise here, let's assume this thing goes chalk. The favorite in each bracket, Michigan State, Auburn, Syracuse, and Baylor. That means Auburn versus Michigan State for the win there. As much as I don't count out Tom Izzo, there's something about this matchup that I really like, and I have no reason to think this otherwise. But I think if that's the case, if Auburn can get through UConn, they're going to end up in the championship game against Baylor. The problem is you're facing Baylor. So I think Auburn's ceiling for wins in this tournament is 2. And I think that, their expectation should be 2, but I could see a scenario with this talented group of teams that they get out of here with 1, because Loyola's been able to shock people before. Who's to say they can't shock Michigan State and then Auburn? Who's to say that UConn, who's been a little bit of a resurgence lately, can't shock Auburn as well? We're in for some good basketball regardless. This, to me, feels like a mini March Madness. It really does, because you've got perennial powers. You've got the upstarts like Auburn who are on the rise. You've got the giant killers and Loyola, Chicago, VCU, and then you've got just some basic teams like Arizona State in this. This just feels like a very well-rounded group of teams to be following in this tournament. Dusty says one thing you have to factor in playing a lot of these teams is we will be playing in this tournament is we ain't getting the calls. Hey, we're used to that, right? By the way, anybody see those comments from Bo Nix? He ain't wrong. I don't know if I would have said it, though. Bo's been a little saucy since he got hurt and he's had to sit out. I think he's a little upset that he can't play in his last Iron Bowl in Jordan-Hare. I say Bo takes advantage of that extra year of eligibility and comes back as a super senior, but I know people won't want that. Anyway, this is not the football show. This is basketball show. Let's keep talking about that. All right, so if Auburn, let's just assume Auburn got beat by UConn, you'd probably end up playing Loyola Chicago, even though they tend to beat people. I think Auburn could beat Loyola Chicago, which means they would probably end up getting their first win there, moving into the 5th and 6th place battle. And that would probably be, just looking at this, a VCU. So that's kind of how I've seen this go. And if Auburn beats UConn, they're probably playing Michigan State and then probably playing Baylor. If Auburn loses to UConn, they're probably beating Loyola Chicago and then probably beating, VCU out of the, VCU, because if they lost, then go in chalk. And that's what's just, I'm going to assume that it does. I don't see Arizona State getting out of here with a win. I could be wrong, but everybody else, I think, is at least going to get one win out of this. It's a great group, though. So what do you guys think? How do you think Auburn's going to fare against UConn? Anybody want to throw out a score prediction, or a percentage confidence, how you're feeling about it? Right now, I'm sitting at kind of I hate to, belabor the point and just kind of be wishy-washy here, but I'm kind of sitting at about 50-50 right now on this game, because everything I hear about UConn is they've kind of gotten things figured out from where they fell off a couple of years ago. You remember not last season, but I think it was 2 seasons in a row before that, we played them home and away and beat them both times, but they were on a decline. Now they're back going up the right direction. So at the same time, you wonder where their trajectory is in relation to Auburn's talent right now. Bo spoke truth. Every SEC fan knows what's up. Bo endeared himself to everyone except Alabama fans that day, I think. Lee, yes, that's what we're discussing, the tough game against UConn coming up. So give me a percentage confidence Auburn wins this game. I'm just going to go on the side of our talent, and our defense is going to win. So I'm going to go above my 50%, and I'm going to say, I'll go 55% that Auburn wins against UConn. So share that with me in the chat window right now if you can. I want to hear from you. Also, I'd love to hear from you on what do you think the percentage confidence is that Auburn makes it to the championship game. This UConn game is the big ticket there. I think, and that's the thing. I would say, if I'm assuming that they'll just get out of there with the win against UConn, that there's probably like a 75% chance they're going to make it to the championship game. Problem is that you're facing Baylor, the defending champions, but also, they lost a lot of their talent, and wow, what a talent it was. It also would be a personal thing for me because I will be with family, and one of my family members, I have 2 brothers that went to a graduate school at Baylor. One's finishing up now, and he'll be in town for Thanksgiving, and we'll be together the day of that game. So I kind of hope Auburn and Baylor happens so I can be there when we upset them. It's going to be a tough ask though. We might win the championship game. Very true. Might be. 60%, our defense gives me confidence. A coincidence is what he says, but confidence is what you meant. I bet that's pesky autocorrect. Russell says Auburn sweeps Atlantis. Pearl gets lifetime contract, becomes athletic director. Why don't you just throw there it is, football coach, just for the heck of it. I would love Bruce Pearl one day, when he's hung that whistle up, to be an athletic director. I think it's not just about the sports. It's about connecting with the athletes, but connecting with the student body. And boy, has he done that. I think Bruce Pearl was made for that type of job, but I'm pretty happy right now with him coaching basketball. Kevin throwing out a score prediction. We got Auburn beats UConn 82-77. I like it. I think it could happen in that way. Based off the USF game, where we were in a new facility, and now we just arrived there today, I believe. So they're going to have some time to acclimate themselves a little bit more than they would against USF. I think that's going to affect our offense a little bit. Will it affect it as bad as USF? Probably not, just because that was the first time doing that. But I don't know that I see Auburn getting up into the 80s scoring wise in this game. The question is, can their defense, which we've seen is very good so far, hold UConn down lower than them? Potentially. Bruce would be an absolute awesome athletic director one day, many natties later. I hope Bruce gets a national championship before he's out of here. Auburn needs to check that box off, and then we can move on to winning a baseball championship and getting back to softball and all that stuff. We need to start ticking the boxes off and go in that direction. So I'm excited. I love the holiday season when we get to, basketball's going, Thanksgiving's here, Christmas is getting here, the Iron Bowl is just around the corner. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Favorite time of the year is March Madness. Just wait till we get to there, folks. I'm going to be super excited about all that. I love this type of stuff here. So I love this field. I think Auburn's got a chance to make some noise. They got a tough road ahead of them, though, to get through Uconn, potentially a Michigan State, and then a Baylor. But even if they do lose and fall directly into the losers bracket here, though, they're not going to be playing chump games. You've got a potential matchup against either Michigan State or Loyola Chicago, still probably Loyola Chicago. You could then even play a Syracuse, a VCU, or an Arizona State, because I don't think Baylor's going to lose one. You see me kind of trying to jinx them a little bit here, because they should be the favorite, and rankings wise, they are the favorite. So that's kind of my impressions about all those things. All right, we're going to start wrapping up the show here. We're not going away just yet, but want to remind you of a couple of things we have coming up. But post your last minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals, predictions tomorrow. What are you excited to see? Who do you think is going to have the best game in this tournament? Starts tomorrow. Get ready, get hyped, get excited. Reminders for you. Tomorrow night, live. I know football's not fun right now, but it's Iron Bowl week. Get hyped. Live Monday night. Wednesday night tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to go live and break down our preview for Auburn versus Alabama, the Iron Bowl. It's going to be fun no matter what. It's Iron Bowl week. So we're going to do that. Probably have a couple more videos for you to come out this week. I'll be on campus on Saturday. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving and enjoys the friends and fellowship and family, and take some much needed rest from the hectic couple of years that we've had here. And just enjoys being with everybody else. Check out some of the podcasts we've got coming out. No Huddle came out Monday. Inside the Jungle Basketball came out today. Tomorrow, Equestrian Show. Thursday, we got another football show, a podcast, and then we've got a Friday potential cross-country wrap-up for their season. So all of those good things, check all of those out. Thomas, you're getting here a little late, buddy, but we're here. I'm glad to see you. Russell says, I agree, Kyle. Think we have potential to challenge in all the major sports, even football. Harsin needs time. You better hope that he stays here. Hope to play Baylor in the tournament to get some payback for last year. Bruce's revenge tour. Yeah, we played 1 and 2 last year. Didn't fare well against either one of them. Maybe this year is a different story. And thank you guys for the Thanksgiving wishes as well. You guys are the best. On your way out, check some of the ways that you can help support our content here. Listed in the description. First and foremost, right down below here, 25% off using the code E2C at manscaped.com. Go take advantage of that. This is only for this week, this new percentage off. Some great items over there that I've been talking to you about all month even. And you can become a Booster Club member or a channel member here on YouTube. Both of those start at $1 a month. And thank you to our channel members and Booster Club members like Dusty who help produce content like this. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'll see you if I don't see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time to talk about Auburn versus Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Until then,